welcome to another episode of the Senior Style Guide Real Talk podcast. I'm Sean Brown, and today we've got on Ariel, who is a senior photographer based in Charlotte, North Carolina. I think it's North Carolina. It's not South Carolina, right? It is North Carolina.
Yeah, it's North Carolina.
Testing my geography right here. But I'm so excited to have her on here today to dive into a little bit about how she got started. We're going to touch on overcoming fear and kind of putting yourself out there, which I think is going to be an amazing topic for a lot of the people who are maybe a little bit more introverted in tendencies, and just touch on an array of senior topics. And I'm super excited to dive in and just pick your brain for a little bit. So welcome to Real Talk.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here and talk with you. I can't wait.
I am stoked. So for those who are listening and watching who don't know who you are, and if they're like, I don't know, just missing the boat on you, tell us a little bit about your story and how you got started with photography, just your journey and, quick little bite-sized bit of your life.
So like Sean said, I live in Charlotte. I'm originally from Durham, North Carolina. How I got started photography was, I did not imagine it being in the cards at all for me. Actually, I wanted to do film, and I always dreamt of moving to LA, and that was it. Nothing else. But I took a photography class in college, got a little dabble in it, but I got a little bit discouraged. The teacher that I had was not so kind and pretty much said that my work sucked, essentially. And I really never picked up another camera again until after college. So when I graduated, I really couldn't find a job in my major that I was passionate about, and I was kind of at a crossroads. So I was like, I don't want to move back to Durham after being in Philly, but how about Charlotte? So moving to Charlotte, I got a job at Portrait Innovations, which is a cookie cutter photography studio where you didn't have to have any knowledge about photography, but that's where I got reintroduced to it. And then I started working with a company shortly after called Teddy Bear Portraits. And that's where I got introduced to shooting outside. And I fell in love with it. Didn't necessarily fall in love with shooting kids, but I loved photography, and I just started shooting all my family and friends. That's when it just kind of catapulted, and I started going to workshops. I started taking classes. I just any information I could get my hands on, I did it. And then my father encouraged me to start my own business, and 7 years later, I've had my business now. So
that's so cool. So for you thought you wanted to do photography. You had this really bad experience in college where the professor was basically like, you aren't cut out for this, which, it was it just out of curiosity, was it more of like an art oriented photography class?
Yeah, it was honestly basics. It was black and white, intro, nothing special.
The reason I ask is because I had a very similar experience in college where it's I took this art class and I thought I could put together this super cool project. And I remember I took this photo with this dude dunking a ball, and it was lit super cool, like a Nike ad. And the professor or the TA was basically the, someone going through the master's, Bachelor of Arts or whatever it is, was this is a good start, but what if we were to take away the hoop and take away the ball from his hands, so he's just floating. I was like, this is not my cup of tea. So I didn't know if you had a very similar experience with, maybe you weren't thinking creatively enough.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So you go from bad experience to all of a sudden you're like, wait, maybe this is what I want to do. Talk us through that journey a little bit.
So I love seeing people smile. I love seeing them happy. I love even the process of shooting. And it was just different. I'm an introvert, so just being around so many different types of people was cool, yet getting out of my comfort zone. And then I loved it seemed like a risk to start a business. My dad said, he encouraged me to do it, and he's actually an entrepreneur as well, but he really didn't give me the tools, and he was like, you know what, you're going to do it on your own and see what happens. But I really actually have loved that journey of, figuring it out. But yeah.
And what did you major in again?
So communications. I started off film and then I switched to communications halfway through.
So where do a lot of people listening want to do photography, but they're like, I didn't major in photography.
Yeah.
And I didn't take a formal photography education. And it's like, yeah, you know what? Not a lot of other people did. So
No.
did you find that you had to almost like justify jumping into photography in a way? Because it's like, well, it's not in my major. I didn't study this.
I'm gonna say no. No, because I felt as though it was attainable. If I wanted to learn it, then I could do that. I knew there was resources, and just how I was raised, like my parents always taught me, just go after what you want. So I didn't believe that I had to have formal education, or anyone else for that matter has to have formal education. In photography, there's so many resources. There's so much education out here, and I'm a strong believer in just putting your mind to it and practicing and not giving up. It's super attainable.
So let's touch on that, because you're almost saying, it doesn't matter your background. It's more about your mindset.
Yes, definitely.
Elaborate on that a little bit for us.
So I'm huge on self-development. I think that's half the piece of the puzzle to running a business. You have to have the mindset. You have to continuously grow. You have to change in a way. But just not giving up, because there have been times where I've had people to, I would say, when I was shooting weddings, I didn't have the best of experiences, and I would easily get down. I was very overwhelmed at times, and just having that self-development piece and always keeping that back in my mind, I was able to push through it. And then also, even transitioning from doing a ton of weddings to only seniors, that was a struggle. And I was like, can I do this? Am I able to do this? Like, am I gonna make the same amount of money? And it was hard. But again, going back to self-development, reading those books, listening to the podcast, going to even conventions, it was like, no, this is mindset. If I want to do it, I can do it. If I want to be the best, then I can be the best. So it's just a matter of putting your mind to it, doing the work, and just not giving up.
Well, I almost think that's like 90% of the battle, like you said.
Yeah.
And if you are self-defeating your kind of goals and your ambitions, where you're saying, oh no, I can't possibly do this, you've already lost the battle, in my opinion. Doesn't matter how much education you have. If you think, oh, I can't do this, but you had the opposite mindset.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's simple. It's very simple.
So you go from, you were saying you went from like 30 weddings, and now you're like almost all exclusively seniors. What did that path look like? What obstacles did you have to go past and get over? Because there are a lot of wedding photographers listening who are like, I wish I could jump into seniors. Like, I don't want to shoot weddings. I don't want to work weekends. I'm tired. I want time with my family.
Right.
Why did you want to make the leap from weddings to seniors?
Well, I was just way more passionate about it. When I was shooting weddings, a friend of mine was like, you know what, you should research other types of photography. And I found myself looking at all these senior photographers, and I was like, you know what, I feel like I should take a stab at it. And I didn't have a lot of self-confidence growing up, and I saw like looking at these other senior photographers at the time, I saw the transformation. I saw like just it was such a light that I saw in the pictures, and I was like, I want to capture that. And so when I started shooting seniors, I was literally able to see girls transform, and guys, and I was like, this is definitely what I'm supposed to be doing, as opposed to shooting all these weddings. And I just loved that. I love the process. I love the end result, but I just love that transformation. I love seeing that self-confidence come out of seniors. It was super rewarding. So that was really the passion behind going from weddings to seniors.
Yeah. What got you into weddings to begin with?
I was at my cousin's wedding, and I was like, I should try weddings. And then I got my first wedding and it literally just spiraled from there. Yeah.
I asked because some photographers are always like, well, I have to shoot weddings. And you kind of alluded to this. You're like, I have to shoot weddings because that's what makes money. And then you said,
Right.
you know, can I even make what I'm making or even a little bit of what I'm making through doing seniors? So
Yeah.
let's talk about your transition from going 30 weddings a year down to, you said, about 5 weddings a year now.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you say the question one more time for me?
Yeah. So let's talk about your journey from going, you know, transitioning from 30 weddings a year to 5 weddings a year, predominantly doing seniors. What did that look like? What, you know, were you scared? Were you anxious, excited?
Yeah.
Just kind of talk us through what was going on in your head.
Yeah. I was definitely scared because I'm like, how am I gonna supplement this? But I started to grind. I did a lot of free shoots in the beginning. And that's why I tell everybody, anyone who mentors me, I'm like, it's no secret. I did free shoots. I hustled. I got out there. I went to all the high schools. Like, you have to put yourself out there in order to see. I went to tons and tons of workshops, and I literally just applied everything that I learned. But I really think it was doing those style shoots, doing those free shoots, and putting that out there. That's what I believe really, really helped me grow my business here in Charlotte. Because people are seeing stuff that they have never seen before. So, and of course, that's what they want. They want to be different. Singers want to be different. But it just took a lot of hustle, honestly, and consistency. I was very consistent. I changed up my posting on Instagram, and also I changed my website so people knew me as a senior photographer as opposed to a wedding photographer. So changing your marketing is super, super essential if you want to be known as a senior photographer. I would say that's really what helped me transition.
Yeah. One of the things that when people are saying, oh, I want to get into seniors, and they're like, but I also still want to shoot weddings, or I still want to do families, but they don't separate their brand.
Yeah.
What do you see as the mistakes that they're making by not, like you said, being known as like a senior photographer, a wedding photographer?
So I believe I've separated my brand enough, but you know what? I still post other things other than the singers. But people still see me as a senior photographer because that's what I've been drilling into their head for years. So I would say you have to put it out. You cannot say that you do weddings, or you can't post pictures that are weddings or engagements or whatever it is. You have to consistently be posting and showcasing your senior work to drill that in their head. But I do believe if you want to post something else, then do it. I mean, but if you want people to know you as a senior photographer, you're gonna have to post consistently.
Yeah.
Senior.
Comes down to, you know, share what you want to shoot.
Yes.
If you want to shoot seniors, share seniors. If you want to shoot weddings, share a wedding. Or
Yeah.
So it all comes down to that mindset. But when we were at the beginning, we kind of talked a little about overcoming fear and what that looks like for your journey, where you said you were introverted, where you had trouble putting yourself out there. So what did you have to do to overcome the fears of ultimately being the face of your business and being the one who everyone looks to when they're looking for a senior photographer?
I would say a big piece of advice would be to surround yourself around others that you either want to aspire to or who are on your level, but more so who you want to aspire to. And those people, in my opinion, have helped me so much, grow so much. And I believe that's why I came out of my shell, is surrounding myself around those right people. Also, you just have reading books that helped. Reading books there's a book on mindset, actually. I cannot remember her name, the author, but it was a book on mindset, and that helped so much. But I really believe surrounding yourself around people, and even in the industry, going to these workshops, learning from the best. I think I mean, they're not going to steer you wrong. Now, do your research on who you should learn from, of course, but it's going to, it helped me tremendously. I cannot stress that enough is, having the proper education on what you want to aspire to.
Absolutely. And let's talk about the role of education. How did it
Yeah.
help you in your journey and what did it do for you?
So I did a lot of style shoots. Um, and that helped tremendously. I remember one in particular, senior style guy. I went to the one in Charleston, and
Oh, that was
I'm
years ago.
yeah, that was when
Yeah.
I first met Thomas and Vicky, and I mean, that was huge, a huge pivotal step in my business. Um, was just seeing from the wardrobe, from how they shot, how they moved, like everything. I was like so focused and zoned in on picking up everything and anything I could. You should always want to be a sponge. I never want to stop learning. No, I don't care how old I get. I think that's super important. But education, I mean, it literally transformed my business. And it's because I applied what I learned. And some people, they take these classes, they do all these workshops, but they don't apply what they learn. So if you apply, I don't think you can fail, honestly. So,
And what do you feel like that is the difference? Because there's a lot of online education out there. But what do
yeah.
you feel like is the difference between online and in-person education? Because you talk a little bit about, just even seeing how they move, how they are posing, how they're
Mm-hmm.
interacting. You can't
Mm-hmm.
really translate that online very well or through camera.
No, I think it's personal preference. So I do better personally by learning, being hands on. Online, it does help a little bit, but I would say videos. If it's video instruction, I think that could be super helpful. But there's nothing like being in the present and being able to shoot those seniors and seeing the interaction, seeing the posing, seeing just everything from beginning to end. Seeing how the instructor makes the model feel comfortable. I mean, I know so many people who struggle with that even. Like, how do I have a conversation with the senior to make them feel comfortable throughout the whole entire shoot? So I think being in person definitely helps a lot, but it's not to say that you can't get a lot of information from online teaching as well.
Yeah.
It's just personal preference.
We even mentioned, making a senior feel comfortable. To what
Yeah.
extent do you feel like that can be taught, or how much is that just in like inherent to who you are as a person?
I think a lot of it is who you are. I'm not gonna lie. I think, but it's not saying you can't teach it. You just have to know. You have to be very patient. I feel like with certain seniors, of course they're gonna vary from person to person, but I think patience is huge. I think always uplifting them, always giving compliments, just trying to make them feel as comfortable as possible. But I believe it is in here.
Yeah.
I believe it's definitely a part of who you are.
Well, I think it has to be, it comes back to mindset, where it also comes down to the mindset of if you believe that you can do this and interact with people and this is something you want to do, I think that's a huge
Hmm.
step too. Where
Yeah.
you have to at first give yourself permission to, if you're an introvert, give 90 minutes of extroverted love to your clients and your families
Yes.
versus sitting back for that 90 minutes and sticking true to your introverted self. You got to put yourself out
Right.
there a little bit.
Definitely. Definitely. You have to put yourself out there. That's the only way you're going to grow. That's the only way you're going to get in situations that you never would have imagined, honestly. So good situations.
Good
So
situations, hopefully. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
In the beginning, you talked a little bit about your dad, who's an entrepreneur, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, Ariel, you should start your own business. Like,
Yeah.
do your own
Yeah.
photography business." And then you said, "But he didn't give me any tools."
Nope.
So, what are like the top 3 things that you learned maybe in the very beginning stages
Hmm.
of, like, maybe it's something that you're like, "I'm never doing this again in my business," or, "Oh my goodness, this worked so well for my business."
I would number one for sure is knowing the accounting side. The accounting side, I think, is huge. It's something that I didn't do as well in the beginning. And a few years through, I was like, oh, yeah, I have to really learn this, like hire someone. So knowing the accounting side is huge. I would say also in the beginning, if you're just starting out in photography in general, I think that it's okay to dabble in different fields, different weddings, seniors, babies, whatever. I feel like that's how you find your passion. But at least having a solid website. I mean, it's 2020, so you need to have a website.
Yeah.
And I know so many photographers who don't have websites. I'm just like, how? Because that's just, it makes you seem, it makes you are professional. So I would say definitely having a precise website, even if you don't specialize in anything yet. And then the third thing I would say is having friends in your fields. I didn't have a lot of senior photography friends. But when I got a field, I was like, oh, it helped because you bounce ideas off of each other. I mean, you're helping one another, and just it's not catty. Everyone is super helpful. There's so much room to go around. But I definitely think that helped me from the beginning is having a few friends in my field.
Yeah. So that, when you're like, oh my goodness, I was published in Senior Style Guide, they're like, cool. What's senior style? Yeah. So it definitely, I think, looking back into the things that I've really grown into my business, that third point is having friends in your industry. Dude, that's so crucial because it's like you learn so much.
It is.
And you mentioned like the in-person side of things, where I feel like half of the in-person stuff is just tidbits that you pick up in conversations when you're not shooting or when you're just out to dinner with someone. And that is kind of my philosophy when it comes to learning and teaching is those moments I almost feel like are more important than that formal classroom education where you can, it's going deep rather than just going wide with your knowledge.
Yeah. I met someone, I did a workshop. I met someone at the workshop. We ended up going to London and Rome and taking seniors with us to shoot. So, I mean, I never would have met her if it wasn't for me, being in that workshop, just wanting to learn. So again, I preach education all the time.
Yeah.
It's a game changer for sure.
It is. Let's talk a little bit about education. You talked a little bit about really loving like lighting and kind of, learning different lighting. Talk about maybe one or two big takeaways that you've learned about lighting over the years and how that has dramatically shifted your portrait work.
So I believe that you can shoot any time of day. It's just a matter of knowing your locations, knowing what your subject is wearing, knowing about natural reflectors, knowing about an actual reflector. So I also believe that if you want that golden hour shoot time, then make your clients shoot at the time that you want. And you're the professional, they trust you. So you have to say, because I know some photographers, that is another question that I get is, well, what if the mom wants to shoot, at 12? No, you have to put your foot down in a nice way and say, this is going to give you the best result. You have to trust me. But shooting at golden hour obviously is typical. That's how you get that gorgeous light. But a big one is, just knowing your natural reflectors, knowing your locations, location scout. Take the time to go out and find those unique locations, or even if it's not unique, but just a nice location that for a fact there's going to be gorgeous light coming through. So that would be my biggest takeaway from when it comes to lighting.
Yeah. When it's so interesting to hear you say, you could shoot at any time of day, because a lot of photographers think, no, I have to shoot 3 hours before sunset. Like I have to. There's no other way to do it. So how did you overcome maybe that mentality? Because I think we all have that to a capacity in the beginning.
It was mindset. It was mindset. Why can't I shoot at the worst time of day? And how do you solve that problem? It's going to location scout. It's going to go see, okay, at this time of day, even though it's awful lighting, I know at this spot, it's going to be fantastic. The light comes in beautifully at this time. And it depends on where you are, if it's city, if it's rural, um, there's going to be some shade. There's going to be, or even if you don't like shade, you like harsh light, I think photography is very biased. I mean, I know a lot of photographers who like shooting in harsh light and their work is beautiful. So I think it's just a matter of location scouting by location scouting properly. It's as simple as that. Find shade. If you don't like shade, then shoot in harsh light. But I believe that's what helped me tremendously is knowing the locations where I can shoot, knowing multiple locations where I can shoot at any time of day, and knowing how the light is going to come in. So that's how you can prepare yourself.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about separating yourself from, you talk about being known as like the senior photographer. What are a couple things that you do to separate your brand from other photographers out there and attract the clients that you want to attract?
So I'm super open, very open, I try to be very personable. So having a senior rep team has helped also. I have only had it for 2 years though. I actually had one 5 years ago. It was awful. I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, I'm never doing this ever again. But having that senior rep team has been, I mean, they spread the word. They get to see who I am. So that I would say that has helped so much in separating myself because they're my talking piece. And I like to do cool things with them. But and also just showing a little bit through, of course, through social media who I am has helped. And just trying to shoot, just do different things when shooting. Just trying to think of ways to not be like everyone else who's in my area, as well as I mean in the country. So what can I do to push myself to be different? Like what are the types of style shoots I can do to be different, to stand out? But I'm always super open to anyone, parents, seniors who meet me, and I feel like everyone can attest to that who has met me.
Talk about your senior rep program for a little bit. Why do you feel like that's such a big part of your business and success?
So again, I've only had, technically, I would say this past year was like my real one. Last year was kind of my test run because I was still like, I had that a little bit anxiety from the previous years when I first had one, but just handpicking them. So I don't do it. I guess it's more. I guess a lot of senior photographers usually have applications. So have not had an application process yet. I actually have them fill out a form after I select them. So I know of them before I select them. And that has helped a lot because I trust the person who I asked. So I now know a lot of people in the high school world. So I'm able to actually ask people who I trust, who I think will represent my brand how I want it to be represented. So I think that has been a really cool aspect, is to not have the application process, but to literally like they're being referred. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you're all referral based then. Is this from past clients, I'm guessing?
Yep, mainly past clients, mainly people just I know. I met so many people here in Charlotte since I've lived here. So a mixture of both.
So then how do you get over the people that are like, well, I wasn't referred, so now I can't be a part of this?
Well, so you don't have to. So like this year actually, I had to do an application process because I did have some girls who wanted to be a part of it. So this year was a mixture of both. Last year was I literally handpicked them. So yeah.
So I guess let's go into the reasoning of why you handpicked them. What were you going for by handpicking them? Because I do something similar where it's not
Okay.
necessarily handpick, but I would say probably 75% of who makes it onto the senior team is by way of referral, or someone who has been referred by a past senior team or client.
Okay. So I like that way because, again, I'm big on kindness. I'm big on giving, and I'm big on just not being afraid to talk about my business, to promote, and I need for those girls to fit those categories. So the people who I'm asking, or the people who are referring them, I know they won't let me down. I know they know what I'm looking for. So and they know up front that if you're going to be on my team, then everyone has to have a positive mindset. Again, I'm big on mindset. And I want all the girls to have that mindset, no matter what. And it's crazy because when I got the applications for this year, that was the common thing. They were like, I love how positive you always are. I love to see the girls, how they interact with each other. You can tell just by looking at your pictures, and they seem so relatable, and I want to be a part of that. So that, and if you can't show that kindness, have that mindset, then we're not going to be the right fit.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's so interesting because I think if you are marketing yourself correctly and you are on point with what your brand wants to be, it's so interesting when you say, oh, they all put like positivity in what they wrote or why they want to be a part of this. Yeah. And I think that that's a really good test of how well you're touching on your brand points is, do people get what you're putting out there, or do you need to work on your brand messaging?
Yep. Yes. Yeah. And I think this kind of steps away from talking about seniors more into branding, but I think having a brand strategist, have a one-on-one call with a brand strategist to get clear on the message you want to put out and knowing how to put that message, because that's another thing that I feel like photographers struggle with is putting out that right message.
Yeah.
So.
Have you done like a call with a brand strategist before or anything like that?
I'm friends with one, so
yeah,
kind of, sort of.
What have you like taken away from those chats with them?
Definitely website. So a book, Story brand. I'm not sure if people have heard of it, but we talk a lot about Story brand and how to convey that message, through your website. That was huge. Having the call to action, making it easy for people to book with you, people to talk to you, and then using Instagram as a tool to show who you are and put out what you want your brand to look like. You have that capability. Yeah. So
for those who are listening who are like, who's Story brand by? But it's by Donald Miller, correct?
Yeah.
So I haven't read it, but this has come up. It's like 4 or 5 times that people brought it up. So maybe it's time for me to.
You should totally
sit down and read it.
It's worth it, or even just listen to his podcast.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
So we'll check it out. We'll link it up in the description.
Yeah.
So before, as we kind of get wrapped up, I love for you to be able to ask the viewers and the listeners a question. So I'm going to give you a second to think about that. So if you guys are watching on YouTube, you can just leave that right in the comments. If you're on the podcast, go ahead and just screenshot this episode, tag us in the description, and Ariel will tell you where you guys can find her, and answer the quick question so that we kind of know what's on your mind and all of that stuff. So what is that one question that we'll ask one question before that. If you could go back to day one of your business where you have nothing, you don't know anything about business, you basically everything you've learned has been taken away, but you have one lesson or one, some sort of thing that you've learned along the way that you want to be able to bring with you day one. What is that one thing that you want to keep with you, that one piece of knowledge that is going to help you build that business starting, years later?
That's a good question because there's so many pieces. I would say that one thing I would want to bring is having the mindset to be able to conquer anything. Because if you have that, then you can learn anything. You can learn business. You can learn how to shoot. You can learn how to interact with your client. You can learn anything. But if you don't have the mindset, it all starts there. If I didn't have the mindset, I would not be where I am today, without a doubt. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Where can people find you on the interwebs?
So arielperry.com, at Ariel Perry on Instagram and Facebook. I don't post a lot on there, but I'm still there. Just Ariel Perry. Yeah. And the one question.
Yeah. The one question I want to ask people.
How can you stand out in your market?
That's love it. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on. I hope that was enjoyable. Tons of takeaways right there. I know everyone who's listening is like mind blown right now. They're like, oh my goodness, so many good nuggets in there. So thank you so much for being on here, taking some time to share a little bit about your story, your journey, and kind of where you are now and how you got there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm always been such a huge fan of your style guide. So I'm super pumped that you guys asked me to be on.
Always. So we're happy to have you on. And so cannot wait to air this for everyone. I guess if you're listening, it's already been aired, but I'm so excited to get this out here for everyone. And until next time, we'll see you guys on the next episode of the Real Talk podcast. See you guys later.
Thank you.